I made it. I almost forgot. I got into planning and working and recalibrating. Hey everybody, happy Monday. Happy Monday. Happy Monday to you. Of course, you could be viewing this on another day. So, oh, happy day. Um, Coming to you to honor the commitment that I made. Hey, Keela, can you help me invite? You can log in as me and help me invite in the little Facebook feature that this does not offer. But anywho, if you're watching and you don't mind sharing, hey, good people, where am I? Am I on my main page? Oh yeah, I'm on my main page. I see Cat Bet. How you doing? Just making sure I know where I am. I won't be before you too long today, but I want to come in just to remind us to continue to play with this yes as we move towards the 12-12 gateway. And I have something kind of funny to share. Um, Shout out to my sister coach on Fix My Life, right? She bought this shirt. I don't know if you all can see the shirt. Let me see if you can see the shirt. In honor of the Gemini full moon eclipse, some of us are still feeling the energy of that, right? Hey, Frida. So the shirt says, May girl. Now, this is about Gemini. Make no mistake, my personality is who I am. My attitude depends on who you are. Now that's kind of funny, right? But it does it's kind of sum up a little bit of this Gemini energy, right? My personality is who I am, but my attitude may determine who you are. I want to talk this today a little bit about receiving. I just want to talk about really quickly about receiving, right? And the ability to receive. Of course, when we talk about it, when we're in our own sacred space, we talk about the feminine art of receiving, very different than just the general spiritual conversation of receiving. And so today, I want to share a little bit more about the spiritual part of receiving, the mindset, and save the feminine arts for the feminine space that we create and that we call juicy. Good. Hey, good people. Let's see if somebody's texting me during the live to help me out with something. Let me see. Okay. Nope. Just making sure it wasn't Keela or one of the team. So, anywho, when we think about yes, right? It's very easy to think about yes in terms of a response to a request, right? And so when some people hear this idea of saying yes, particularly people pleasers, it may make you cringe if you are a helping professional, a person that gives a lot. So the idea of saying yes to more sometimes is really like, are you serious? Like, are you really asking me to say yes to more than what I'm already carrying? Particularly people who are in leadership, or people who have high anxiety about the responsibilities that you are already carrying. Um, and so when we talk about receiving, we're talking about more than just that. We're not talking about just your response to a request, because many of us are still waiting to be asked, waiting to be chosen, especially when it comes to love and love relationships, when it comes to sex and sexuality. Many of us are still waiting to be chosen. And so even getting towards 12-12, when we come into our feminine space, to look at that from and how it has affected some of the choices that we've made along the way. Of course, no shameless plug or anything, but I talk a lot about that in this book, in my book, My Juicy Rebirth. And it can definitely prime the pump of those of you who have been adverse to sensuality and the whole idea of shame or guilt, right? Particularly sexual shame, sexual guilt. So it can prime your pump because so many of us are blocked, and we have not challenged the limitation. We've lived in the limitation. We have a badge of honor around the limitation. We're self-protected around the limitation, but we call it something else. We don't call it a limitation. We'll put it under the name of something spiritual. We'll put it under the name of right and wrong, right? And so when we talk about this, yes, we're talking about making room for more in a way that is counterintuitive to even a man, if you're watching, right? Because men also have been stereotyped into gender roles, into ways of being that the culture calls toxic masculinity, right? And so now when it comes to receiving, there are levels to this that we're talking about. There's an unhealthy level of receiving and not having an exchange or a balance. There is a healthy way of receiving as well. And so when we're talking about receiving, of course, we're talking about a level of openness, right? We're talking about saying yes to something. It may require you looking at what you've been saying no to look at what your limitations are. And I'm going to talk about the influence of Gemini from this shirt, the inspiration. Shout out again to Dr. Denora for giving. We all each had this shirt, had some type of shirt like this around our zodiac. And it was so funny on the shirt. And it's funny because that's Gemini energy a lot of times. And Gemini energy is empathic energy. So sometimes when I talked about, for those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, when I talked about forgiveness first, forgiveness came first in this yes conversation because we're talking about making room for more, right? Making room for more. If your heart is closed, your mind is closed to the possibilities of rebirthing, reinventing your life, reclaiming, or even being responsible for the bigness of the desires of your heart, the bigness of your vision. So it may require that even what you forgive is the belief of around playing small. And then yesterday we talked about saying yes to your spiritual gifts because so many people have been condemned or have been hiding or in isolation. If you all don't mind, because I'm coming in through this third party, will you share? Will you add a few people to this live? Keela, can you come out and go in as me and add from the Facebook application? Sorry, I didn't ask in advance. Somehow we'll figure out ways to edit this out, but I'm trying to work smarter, not harder, for those of you who are watching for the very first time. So that's why I'm coming in this way, so that it can also be broadcasted on my YouTube channel, which I do welcome you to subscribe to. That being said, when we look at the idea of the Gemini full moon eclipse, and we're talking about communication, our tendency sometimes is to look at communication as only with another human. And when we're looking at openness or blocks, we also go to looking at other humans. And so if we see that human as an optical, insert any human that comes to mind, because there are humans everywhere. And so when we look at opening and closing, sometimes there are triggers, right? And those triggers that stop us are the things that we have the opportunity to choose with a yes. Choose to revisit, right? Choose to reconsider. It's a choice. Your yes is a choice. clearly, right? That's the power in this whole yes and no deal. And a lot of people, we jump on bandwagons, and then sometimes we get stuck on the bandwagon and forget that the person who was sharing the inspiration jumped off a long time ago. We do that in spiritual circles. We don't even give our leaders permission to grow. And so even spiritual teachers, you have to give yourself permission to grow and to expand on beyond what you knew when you first started opening your mouth and sharing. Because a lot of times we start giving things away before it's even fully cooked, before it's ready, before we've gone through enough process. And so we have this trend in this culture where people are just jumping into, I'm ready to give and ready to pour. So even for you, I've had to give myself permission as an entrepreneur to change and to shift and to grow. And I love facilitating sacred processes in a way that allows people to revisit the process at different seasons in their life, right? Because it's when we get fixed that we can't oftentimes receive. We get fixed on the idea of right and wrong, right? Thank you so much, Kat, and everyone else who's sharing, who I just might not be able to see. So I appreciate you, Kat. So listen, when we talk about saying yes, when you think about this whole conversation that we've been having, and I do want you to talk back to me. You don't have to just look at me. When I said yes to forgiveness, when I came in on Saturday and talked about yes to forgiveness, most people can always know that there's something that they've been holding on to, or the next level is calling. And sometimes when we are trying to do everything in our own power and in our own strength, it's counterintuitive when you're a boss B. Some of you take pride in being a boss B. When you think about this, right? It is it's deeper. It's an opportunity to pull in and to look at, what do I need? Where do I want to go? Create. But sometimes when the reason why I began with forgiveness is because we can't ascend while holding on. Like if this is your anchor and you holding on, and you've being called higher, but you can't let go of whatever it is. It could be any belief that you've been holding on to about yourself or about other people or about systems. Because right now we're in a period in this double portion year where everything is under evaluation. Can you agree that everything is under evaluation? What you thought about work, haven't you had to reevaluate your income strategy? Even if you're an entrepreneur, haven't you had to reevaluate your particular strategy? See, because many of us who have been digital marketing space, we've been doing what many people have had to do because of COVID, so we were already doing this. I had a whole online ministry for 3-4 years. And so now everybody else is entering in the game. What happens though when you recognize that you have been called to be the first responder to a thing, but your hesitation, and listen, people love to talk about when they had an opportunity to invest in Bitcoin, but they were skeptical. Or when you had an opportunity to be, it's not that network marketing doesn't work. It is about timing and being on the right team. But if you had gotten in early, if you had been an early responder, right? Think about this. I'm going to stay with me. If you had been taught how not to just lead with your resistance and suspicion and anxiety and survival mode, if I had been taught this, and am I country loud? Because I kind of feel like I'm being country loud. Sometimes it's country loud, and sometimes it's Holy Spirit. Tell me, do I sound country loud? Because the people in the tribe and Rebirth Woman, you all kind of know what's happening when it's happening. But I haven't been coming on this public page. So those of you who are new to me, I just want to check in. Am I country loud, honey? But for real, when you think about if you had not been taught to lead with worry or the good girl, being good, being right, looking good, needing to know how before you fully invest or play full out, right? Had you been taught how to lead in with your energy of curiosity, exploration, it could open the possibility, right? That's what I'm suggesting today when I say yes to receiving. I put in parentheses because some of us are in comfort zones. We're comfortable. There's difference. There's some people who will hear this and you know that your yes is calling you out of a comfort zone. Some of you will hear this and you're comfortable. You don't have an incentive to necessarily have to change or to grow outside of pain or outside of great desire. Because women in particular who have quote unquote everything, it's oftentimes the things that you don't have that will drive you when you're used to having things. But when it comes to choosing a journey or choosing to forgive or choosing to really take the risk to learn, not just because you have a spiritual gift, but how can you cultivate the spiritual gift? How can you be coachable, teachable, trainable? Because when there's time to do something new, anything new, y'all with me? Come on now, give me some hearts. Let me know if I'm talking good to you right now. When it's time for you to do anything new, there's a learning curve. But in the learning curve, before you fully even in the learning, the curve sometimes gets extended in the learning curve with our resistance, our arrogance, spiritual arrogance, the unforgiveness, and the reluctance to be fully seen, to be fully heard, or to take the risk of the possibility of getting it wrong. You know, in Asian culture, in their educational system, one of the things that they do in Asian culture, I know that Asian culture is teased oftentimes, and I'm talking more South Asian, not East Asian. But when we're talking about places like China, where parents oftentimes get the blame for helicopter parenting, and there is something valuable to consider there in that critique. But one thing that they do in these cultures is they praise mistakes. I want you to hear that. I want to pause right there. They praise mistakes. In other words, imagine if your worst mistake, or the times when you needed to explore, right? The times that you needed to do exactly the way that you did it, and you're not condemning yourself, you're not feeling shame for. What if you were open now to that same learning curve? Because we can get very fixed and set in our ways about anything. There are people I know who had gotten fixed in their sexuality, identified very heavily in one community, and found that it was fixed. It was no longer their identity. And so when you, and I know that might be deep. Is that deep for some? Because your sexuality could be anything. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not, and this whole thing about even getting juicy is not about your sexuality. And I understand when we even, and there are some of you who are freed up enough that that even the sexuality part of the conversation does not make you afraid, but, or make you uncomfortable. But it is very, very interesting that it's coming through right now in that area, because even that evolves for us. And when you talk about even expanding orgasm, there's a whole benefit of receiving. But the science and the technology of sacred medicine and sacred process is, how can you expand your sexuality with a partner when you may be limited with yourself? How can you expand your let's say your business practice, particularly as a helping professional, but you are unwilling to allow yourself to be helped, to be supported, to be called on your own ish? It is very unhealthy to be in leadership or and then become isolated. Remember, I talked about yesterday how you can become isolated when you're spiritually gifted, because if you don't feel accepted in the beginning, you're never really sure of your gifts. You never get a chance to even know what your strengths are in your gifts, how to take care of them, how to maintain them. The same. So we're moving through this week. We're moving through. And so when we're talking about expanding and making room, even in sexuality, there is a part of it that requires you to be able to move past the unknown traumas and pains that block the energy. Those same blocks show up in other places. Sometimes our ears just get really juicy when it comes to hearing it around sexuality, money, and love. But if we would give ourselves permission in the small areas, for instance, sometimes what I want to leave you with is this: is feedback is neutral. That's a leadership principle. Feedback is neutral. Our world is always giving us feedback, though. If you're in a marriage, you're getting feedback a lot of times that either somebody should have gave you and didn't. It's highly unlikely that your partner is going to hold their tongue, like yes people around you or people you understand what I'm saying. If you're in a marriage relationship, you get feedback. Sometimes you don't like it, is what I'm saying. But the art and the science of really opening possibility is when you can begin to embrace uncomfortable feedback without already dismissing it. Now if you can do it for the uncomfortable, can you imagine when you choose for the thing that you know is going to be a return on your investment? And that could be a relationship. It's worth going through a forgiveness process, wouldn't you say? I'm asking, talk back to me. I'm going to pause because I see somebody said fear is a huge problem. Should I talk a little bit more? Beth, what gave you chill bumps? Okay. Talk back to me. Juicy is being authentic, aware, and loving yourself. It is, but there's more. There's more. It absolutely is. Of course, you're cheating a little bit because you are one of the juicy butterflies. And I love that. You should, because juicy is a lifestyle. Well, we're going to get into defining juicy, the J, the U, the I, the C, and the Y. But the last part of juicy is the yes. But before, I just want to prime your pump, because many of us have not even given ourselves permission to get to Yes, because we've been taught no, to say no as a way of power. And it is. No is a form of power. But just like bandwagons, let me finish that thought from earlier. Just like bandwagons, and no is a what is it? Is a complete sentence. That's a meme, right? No is a complete sentence. I don't have to explain my no. That's not true. That's not true in all cases. So then you jump on bandwagons, requote, regurgitate stuff that has no context or no container. The context and the container of your yes is everything. And that's what makes the difference between it being a yes response and a sacred yes that rises up from within, that reinvents you, that rebirths you, that gives you the overflow. Everybody wants the overflow, but many of us don't want to get in the water. I am one to talk, because a part of yes is stretching yourself to receive even the opportunity to get past the vibrational point of fear or the anxiety of when you think you need to defend yourself. Because that's really what anger is. That's really what attitude is. That really is what happens when empaths are not taking good care of themselves, and you take on the energy of other people, and before you know it, you have their attitude. I'll give you an example of how I had to clean up my care for myself and standing in my yes, because an empath, for instance, is always receiving, whether they want to or not. And sometimes we can do it, we learn how to shut that off, right? And sometimes we do it in healthy ways, and sometimes I've done it in unhealthy ways and didn't know that that's what I was doing, trying to take care of myself. Some of us are just trying to take care of ourselves, but if you come from a judgmental culture and then you start to judge yourself, sometimes you don't know the voice of the divine to even be able to get to the yes that's coming from the holy I am consciousness, the Christ consciousness, the I am presence, the inner voice. The come on, y'all, talk back to me. You feel me? And some people have no idea what I'm talking about because you've been bound by rules. You judge by your rules of culture, of politics, and so we get stuck. And it affects us when we jump on bandwagons, right? And don't know when the inspiration was for a time and for a season. The information was for a time and for a season, and it's time to be updated. So when I was oh, the part where Beth said the part that gave her chills was when I said that Asian parents and I didn't necessarily say failure, but is very interesting that you chose to insert failure where I said mistakes, because oftentimes we do see mistakes as failure, and that's exactly what they don't do. They see it as experimentation, discovery, closer to solution. In fact, entrepreneurship, for those of you who say you want to come into entrepreneurship, I give an example. It took me a long time to say yes fully to be full-time in entrepreneurship, because the yes that you have to recreate as an entrepreneur when you don't know where your next whatever is coming from, unless you learn. See, I had to learn on the ground. This is why I'm doing the mastermind, the private mastermind spaces, and the business incubator next year, because there were mistakes that I made in my yes, in my eagerness, and in my obedience to my anointing and to my calling. I finally said yes after knowing and being called higher to come out of that comfort zone and come out of spaces when I was comfortable. And I'm not talking just a limited view of comfort or comfort zones. They both can exist at the same time. You can be comfortable and in a comfort zone. You can become in a comfort zone and uncomfortable. You can be comfortably uncomfortable. Two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time, but there is a law of duality, and we weave and we wobble sometimes through it, but the judgment comes that won't give us permission sometimes when we need to do this. And for some of us, we judge ourselves when the pendulum is still swinging and hadn't landed yet. Now, of course, and is this too deep? You know, I said I was going to ask this at the end of every broadcast. Is this too deep? Because I'm happy to break it down. And this is a great place to ask questions. Inbox me, propose something else. This is contrast. A part of receiving even is being open to contrast. That's what I'll close with. Because when we talk about giving yourself permission beyond the limitation, thank you, Beth, for letting me know. Anybody else too deep? It's okay if you say it's too deep too. It's okay. The fact that you stayed on to watch is yes to receiving. I knew that my calling would be to be a bridge, because I used to be on the other side of the bridge in rigid in religion, being a good girl trying to be the good girl after feeling like the black sheep. So I know what it is to be on the other side of the bridge. And so in my work, the reason why I check in on whether it's too deep or not, because I'm willing to meet you where you are. I'm not going to stay there now. I'm not going to stay there, because you have to do the work. And that is the yes. Every time this thing chimes, I feel like it's like confirmation. So join us on 12/12, because as I said before, there's so much activity. Even though there's been the full moon eclipse, that the effects can last for several days and weeks actually afterwards. We feel that. So it intensifies every other transition in the stars. And so I invite you to join us for the 12/12 Gateway, where we move. This really is a space for feminine leaders to come to reactivate, to recharge, to remember, to revive themselves, and to revisit the parts of themselves that they've been saying no to in fear, anxiety, worry, or just pure out distraction and hustle, whatever the case may be, because it doesn't have to be bad for you to say yes to your next level, for your next season. And in particular, the timing is everything, because this gateway, this time period, as we move into this particular winter solstice, is going to be amplified. And those of you who study astrology know that it's going to be amplified by the energy of Jupiter. And we won't see another time like this for the next 50 years. So whatever we are focusing on and giving our energy to, and what I'm proposing to you, even if you are a man watching or you choose not to come because I might be too deep, I'm encouraging your yes in this season. I want to minister to your yes, and I want to milk your yes and prime your pump for those who are opening and willing to rise to the occasion that the season is calling us all to. It's time to stop playing small and wanting to live in the manna, but still operating and feeding off of baby food. Somebody could catch that quote, catch that tea. We want the manna in the manifestation. In other words, we want the good part, the good portion, but many of us still want to operate on spiritual baby food. And what I'm saying is that we're getting ready to go into a time and into a season where those of you who have been hiding, those of you who have been in isolation, this is a season for you to begin to show up and to fill up your cup. Those of you who have been hungry and thirsty and seeking on a journey and knowing that you have not been fed and you need to be hydrated, this is a season for you and your family and your vision and your finances and the matters of your heart. You with me? Timing is everything. So the link is above in the description or somewhere, wherever they put it. But the description is to join us on 12/12 at 12, calling all feminine leaders, empaths, creators, those who have awakened their feminine soul, those who are entrepreneurs and those who are thought leaders. Come, creatives, wives, mothers. And I'm not saying that it's just lottie dottie and everybody, because you have to choose this higher journey that we're being called to on the planet right now. And so thank you for staying so present and sharing. And if you have any questions, please just tag me in the comments. The link is in the bio. You can also go to latanyataylor.com, not only for this event, but for any updates on what I'm doing and where I'm going. I'm going to be participating in something, I believe it's the marijuana vagina logs, something like that. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it together. So stay tuned. It'll be also on the link this month. I'm looking forward to sharing there. There's some other special broadcasts that are going to be released in January. And most of all, just come to 12/12. If you ever want to connect with me and what I'm doing, go to latanyataylor.com. I love you, and there's nothing you could do about it. Thank you for spending time with me. Say yes to receiving today. Say yes to receiving today. So yeah. Okay. The link is latanyataylor.com, Linda Tay. latanyataylor.com. The link is always in my profiles on all platforms. So even if you don't see it, just click in latanyataylor.com. Linda, thank you for watching on your end over there. Thank you for letting me know. Go to my name, latanyataylor.com, to register. All right, y'all. See you on the other side. Oh, y'all, did y'all see my post? Wait a minute. Did y'all see? How do I do it? You see the goddess picture back here, right here. This is the picture that was on the Lisa Ray show on I'ma Fix My Life. I did a little video clip of it. But if you watch the Lisa Ray show, thank you again to the Reverend Dr. Iyanla Vanzant, my big mama, queen mother, for gifting me this. And so now every time I do my broadcast, I get the power of the triple goddess, the queen mother, the mother, and the princess. Always working with the energy of the mother. Love you. Ciao. See you on the other side.